Hey, welcome to The Explainer. So what's the difference between a government agency and a private company? Seems obvious, right? One's public, one's private. End of story. Well, what if I told you that line is, well, practically invisible sometimes? Today we're going to unpack this really cool idea called organizational publicness that totally flips that simple divide on its head. You know, we all kind of have these pictures in our heads, right? You've got the public sector on one side and we think, oh, that's government-owned, probably a bit bureaucratic, there to serve the citizens. And then on the other side, you've got the private sector. It's all about profit, being efficient, and serving customers. It feels like this super clean black and white world.
But is it really that simple? I mean, look around. The world is just filled with organizations that completely smash those neat little boxes. And that is the puzzle we're going to solve today.
I mean, just think about it for a second. You've got private companies running state prisons. You've got nonprofits that are basically the backbone of public health services. You've got private universities getting huge government checks for research. And, of course, giant corporations building our public infrastructure. So what are they? Public? Private? The old labels just completely fall apart.
All right, so here's how we're going to crack this thing. First, we'll look at the old school public versus private debate. Then, we'll introduce this idea of a spectrum of publicness. We'll dive into why values matter, see how all this actually affects performance, and then wrap it all up with some key takeaways.
Okay, Section 1, public versus private. Let's start peeling back that first layer, which is, the most straightforward way people have tried to answer this.
So the very first stab researchers took at this is called the core approach, and it is super simple. It all comes down to one thing: legal ownership. If the government's name is on the deed, it's public. If private investors or founders own it, it's private. That's it. Case closed. Or is it?
Well, of course, as soon as people started digging into it, they hit a wall. A huge review of studies in 2002 basically said, nope, ownership alone doesn't cut it. It just couldn't explain why organizations act the way they do or why some perform better than others. Turns out, the puzzle is way more complicated than just asking who owns this place.
So, we obviously need something better than a simple on or off switch. This brings us to the second layer of the puzzle, and this is where things get really interesting. This right here, this was the game changer. In 1987, a scholar named Barry Bozeman comes along and just blows up the whole conversation. He says, look, every organization is public. And you're thinking, wait, what? But his point was that every single organization, whether it's the DMV or a tech giant, is shaped by a mix of political authority and economic forces. So the real question isn't, is it public or private? It's, how public is it?
And what's so great about this idea is that it gives us a real tool, a way to actually measure publicness across three key areas. Yeah, we still look at ownership, but now we add funding. Is the money coming from taxpayers or customers? And we add control. How much government regulation or political influence is there? An organization's unique recipe of these three things tells you exactly where it sits on that spectrum. All right, so now we're looking at ownership, funding, and control. But is that all an organization is? Just a machine made of money and rules? Or is there something more? Something like its soul?
And that question brings us to another layer, maybe the deepest one yet. It's not just about structure and money. It's about its mission, its values. What does it stand for? Scholars have a great name for this: normative publicness. So researchers went out and identified this whole constellation of public values. And we're not talking about stuff written in an employee handbook here. We're talking about an organization's deep-down commitment to core ideals. Things like legality, following the law and due process; equity, that drive for fairness, for helping those who need it most; accountability, answering to the public; and responsiveness, actually listening to what people need. The more these values are baked into an organization's DNA, the more public it really is.
In this idea of values, it perfectly explains why certain people are drawn to these kinds of organizations. The research is pretty clear. People who have a real, genuine desire to serve the public interest, they light up when they find an organization whose mission matches their own values. And that combination, that personal drive plus a mission that matters, wow, that can be way more powerful than just a bigger paycheck.
Okay, so we've built up this really rich, complex picture of publicness. It's not just ownership, it's funding, control, and values. But here's the bottom line, right? The million-dollar question for anyone in charge. Does being more public actually help or hurt an organization's performance?
Now, you'd think there'd be a straightforward answer, like public is less efficient or something. But the data, it's all over the place. A huge meta-analysis looked at tons of studies. And what did they find? Well, about a third of the time, more publicness meant lower efficiency. But about a quarter of the time, it meant higher efficiency. And the biggest chunk, over 40% of the studies found, well, no connection at all. So yeah, the relationship is messy.
So what in the world is going on? Well, it seems publicness is a classic double-edged sword. It has two faces. On one hand, it can be a real constraint. All that political influence can lead to red tape, confusing goals, and slow, painful decision-making. It can even pull an organization away from what it's supposed to be doing. But on the other hand, it can be an incredible motivator. It inspires people to go the extra mile, what researchers call organizational citizenship. And like we said, it acts like a magnet for those passionate, mission-driven employees.
All right, we've gone deep into this stuff. Let's pull it all together and figure out what the big takeaways are.
Okay, 3 key things to remember. Number 1, publicness is a spectrum, not a switch. It's a measurable mix of ownership, funding, control, and values. Number 2, it's a total double-edged sword. It can tie you up in red tape, but it can also fire up your people with a powerful mission. And number 3, this is the most important one, this is a practical tool. If you're a manager, understanding your organization's unique publicness profile is absolutely crucial. It's how you navigate the challenges and lean into your biggest strengths.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Think about where you work or any organization you deal with every day. How public is it really? And now that you've got this new way of looking at it, what does that tell you about how it works or why it doesn't?
This is obviously a huge topic. And if this got you thinking and you want to keep going, there's a lot more to explore.
To dive deeper into this whole world of publicness and organizational smarts, come visit us at PublicWise.online. Thanks so much for joining us on The Explainer.